What is a god, though? Well, a god is technically anything that is beyond you, right? Beyond your current potential. And this can be misinterpreted in many ways. See, even people, when they see someone who plays a video game in such a best way, an extreme way, they can be so good at something, they call them a god of that game or a god in their particular field, right? When you look, for example, of the greatest musicians of a certain type of music, they're kind of regarded as the gods of their genre. And, well, there is a question though. Is it you humans that are inferior to gods? Or can gods actually, have powers that we humans can achieve? Now, this sick society is telling you, first and foremost, the greatest crime against humanity within these Abrahamic religions is that you always need someone else to connect you to divinity. See, the very simple point is you are created here for potentials beyond your own. But obviously, you can't believe those because, they can easily be discarded. And you can also call it easily as mumbo jumbo, right? But you had a lot of people, humans, right? They lived in a human body. They suffered the same pains as you, but far more intense pains than you. Yet they transcended the cycles of life and death, and therefore they are still remembered till today. And they are regarded as gods, right? Some of them exist today. They existed very well in times not far long. Some of them lived long, long ago, and they're still mentioned by people. But you will still obviously disregard those because you're convinced there can only be one single creation up there, and no other human can reach that level. Shall we remind people that Hinduism, as a grand belief, which has firm foundations into this society of ours, and it has all the proof one may need to attest to the fact that it's been around here for even thousands of years. Before the Abrahamic religions, they told you that the gods created this universe, and whether there are many gods or a single god, the point is there is creation that made all of this possible. It doesn't matter how many entities took part in this. But when you look at Hinduism, there is a belief that you're not going to find it uh, in the published versions of the Bible, Quran, and Torah, because the um, Hinduist teachings that were long since banned, they tell you that, well, when a human reaches enlightenment, when a human reaches their full potential, even the gods will bow down to them. People simply don't understand what creation is. People don't understand that creation is fully unconscious. Creation simply designs based on its own functions. It doesn't have an awareness, it doesn't have any idea of discernment. It created the possibility of discernment into this universe, but creation itself does not have any discernment. Yet all your religions are poisoned with the fact that God can discern in between you and in between everyone else. Once you poison people's minds enough with this idea, people will easily fall into the poison that, God favors them, right? Because people who suffer from abandonment issues, aka most of the generations before us, well, they will live in separation. They will live in separation because, when people reach a certain level of pain, they will instinctively separate themselves from the others. When you live in misery and ignorance, well, the problem with ignorance is that you identify a lot with this physical body. You end up thinking that there is only this physical body, the few things that you know, and the few things that you can see and hear around you, and then there can be nothing else, right? That's the problem with most ignorant people. And these ignorant people, when they go to a priest, or let's say to a religious proceeding, let's call it so, they easily, the poison in their mind easily gives them this illusion that there is only them, the preacher or the priest or whatever you call them, and divinity, right? Everyone else simply doesn't matter. When that person speaks to them, their abandonment issues will make it such that they think that that preacher, that teacher, that priest, that rabbi is speaking only to them. The other simply won't matter much. So you have a lot of people thinking that God in a way favors them, because don't forget, the grand poison of these Abrahamic beliefs is that someone else is the only one that can contact you with divinity. But if you look at the people who have become enlightened, you will never see one who has become enlightened that will believe that someone else will connect you to divinity. The only reason why they have reached that level of enlightenment is because they had the courage to dig deep within and come to the realization that you can't simply connect yourself to divinity through someone else. You don't even need to connect yourself to divinity. Mainly because, and I repeat, mainly because you are always connected to divinity. A lot of people feel that they are abandoned, but, well, creation has always been around you. It is going on. You may not hear or you may not be aware of the grass growing, but the simple fact that the grass keeps growing, everyone keeps, being born. Some will die, some will get born, and the cycles of life continue. The cycles of this creation continue. This is simply, like pure definition of creation going on, right? When creation no longer comes, no longer pours into this universe, that's when you should worry that everything you have learned is a mistake. This obviously won't ever happen, because this whole existence is on a continuous expansion. But you have a lot of people lost to these poisonous meanings, right? Because these were meticulously done to poison you. Don't forget, you've been born in a society that's been lying to your parents ever since they were born. Some of your parents, if you are unlucky, obviously they also continued these lies. And, well, tell me, when's the last time you actually heard the truth from this sick society? Because the purpose of a sick society is to reverse the truth and teach you that lies are the truth. You don't believe me? Just look around. People are prancing, in their misery. People are simply embracing misery as the ultimate, right? They're embracing misery, and to them, misery has become even greater than creation itself, right? When you are in pain, what is the greatest thing that you can know in those moments? Your pain, right? If God themselves will come to you, what will you ask of them? Please make the pain go away, right? A lot of people simply don't understand what a god is. Well, a god is basically just like magic. If something your mind cannot decipher, it is indistinguishable from magic, right? Something that has created this whole existence, right? They definitely must be, overly powerful, right? A lot of ignorant people will say, we have built everything around. Yes, we have designed the resources with which we created this whole societies that we live in. But we definitely didn't create the materials from which we designed those resources. We haven't created this planet, right? And some people will always argue on this. But the idea of a god is, well, if you need to believe in creation, I don't think you need to bother with giving it a name or not. Because for sure, creation is far beyond you. Creation is obviously beyond the infinity of possibilities that this physical universe is about, right? Even in the Bible it said, at first there was nothing and then came creation. So that which created this universe is definitely beyond all the possibilities and all the potential of this whole universe, right? They made it, they created it. So if these creators are beyond, or single creation, you never know, but if these are beyond this society that we have, beyond this planet that we live in, beyond this galaxy, beyond this whole universe, do you think they even need you? Do you think they even know you? How entitled do you need to be? How abandoned do you need to feel to embrace the idea that, this whole creation is favoring you specifically and will specifically help you? It designed ways that, will push events in a way that can at least help you. But that is the function of the universe and how it was set to function, especially if you learn how to harness that power. It is not something that those deities are doing deliberately to you. There are, yes, helpful forces in this universe. And those helpful forces, they are also unconscious. They guide themselves automatically towards those who know how to resonate in a way. And that resonation is basically how you call them in. The Sikh society has created numerous poisons. One of them, for example, is prayer. If you don't know how to pray, well, you're going to bring in the wrong things in life. What does each religion tell you, right? In English, they tell you bless. What does bless mean? Well, bless, you've been taught that it means something good. Yet again, I repeat you that question. When is it the last time you heard the truth from this Sikh society? Never forget, English is a highly occult language. They don't call it spelling for nothing, because you're taught how to use words and how to program yourself with those words. That's why I've been presenting some hints at the idea that talking to yourself can be a further poisoning of your mind, because if you are embracing the wrong affirmations, the wrong beliefs, talking to yourself will be just a recycling of those, so you're only gonna strengthen those. I'm not here to tell you anything that is good or bad. It is up to you to decipher that. So the very simple point is, well, bless in occult English means be less, but when it is pronounced quickly enough so people don't realize it, it sounds as bless, right? And they tell you, well, bless, right? Be less. Look at mainstream media music. Look at mainstream in general. Only fear pumping, only dumbing you down, numbing you down emotionally, so that you're constantly disconnected from the godhood that you are, right? There are beliefs in this world that say that you are gods and goddesses, right? Old Satanism represented this. I'm referring to the old one, not the modern one. Old Satanism presented some idea that gods, men and women were built as gods with ultimate power. And the creator, which is not Satan, but the creator of it, said, all of this world is for you to own, all of this world is for you to enjoy. But do not indulge into its pleasures too much, because you will become my slaves. Hopefully, well, I think this old belief may sound a bit familiar, maybe, but it is something that I heard was called Old Satanism. People may call it in different ways. And no, it doesn't have any link to the modern creation of Satanism. This idea of us humans being gods and goddesses, especially in distress and especially in amnesia, is also more and more proven scientifically by what we call quantum physics, right? So all these truths of the old times are slowly and surely becoming, more and more of a reality, which is one other extra reason that supports the point that these religions and beliefs of the old will dwindle. Yet again, I underline, dwindling or these beliefs disappearing doesn't mean that they will disappear entirely. Maybe they will embrace completely different approaches to life, where people who become suddenly more aware of life and they no longer see life as a tool, as pain, as something that they never live or experience, right? Because you have people indirectly accepting the idea of revival, cycles of life and death, but they mock it, right? You have Christians telling you that, there is nothing beyond, because all these fuckers who meddled with religions and turned them from simple teachings of life, right, and teaching you how to be more respectful, how to accept something which is greater than you, they turn these ideas of religion into tools of manipulation, tools of fear, pumping hatred and separation into others, because, well, separation is an easy way to simply create a war. Once you have two sides, a war is kind of always imminent, right? And when you have misery, war is also unavoidable. Sooner or later it will happen. And then people will say, oh gosh, you're such a prophet. No, I'm not a prophet. I'm just presenting you sure possibilities. Because once you know some things about how the unconscious functions, well, you're probably gonna look like a prophet to some, and if your quotes don't simply come true, they will say that you're a false prophet. See, I'm not prophesizing things, I'm just presenting possibilities of how things can go. And I usually pray and wish that they won't end up in the worst versions of them. Now, people will have been telling me prayer is not evil. Well, I'm actually telling you prayer is evil in a way. And again, I underline in a way. I've been saying it in other videos and I don't mind repeating it. See, when is it the last time that you heard the truth from this world? Everything in this world has been reversed in a way because that's how they keep you in ignorance. Look at all the people who still think they have to be connected to someone, by someone, to divinity, to experience divinity. Look at the people who transcended the cycles of life and death, right? Did Jesus need a priest to connect them to divinity? No. I don't think Jesus ever went to a priest, right? I don't think Jesus ever went to a priest and said, connect me to my Father, right? Because he knew he was one with creation. Each and every one of you is one with creation. Obviously, a lot of people will say, yes, but how can I be Jesus? No one said you have to be Jesus. You don't have to be Jesus, but you can reach, spiritually speaking, you can reach their potential, right? Because if we look at the Bible, Jesus has done so many awesome things that, to our, simple-minded beliefs, it may sound that only a titan, only a God can do that. But ultimately, they can still be, nowadays when we have so much more scientific knowledge, they can easily be either discarded or, some people can fight against those. Nowadays you can have, you have way more literate people. And many of them, especially atheists, might try to attack Jesus and say, wait, Jesus definitely did not revive anyone. Maybe they were in what we call nowadays as clinical death, right? Some people will tell you this. I heard a few accounts, but some people will tell you this. More will probably join in. Because all these ideas of people fighting for their religion and fighting for against their religion, these are just times of change, right? These are just signs of the times of change. People simply wish to refuse them because they want to do the same thing again and again and again. Sorry for my shivering, but it's a bit chilly outside. And well, this piece of cloth that I have on me may look that it is thick, but the wind actually blows through it like through nothing. And the wind is a bit chilly anyways. And it's been around here planting my feet on soil for like 45 minutes already. The wind became a bit more chilly though. So prayer. Prayer means you are invoking something. You're telling something, you're speaking something into your life. That could be a good definition. Now, what do sick people tell you? That you're not good enough. Why? Because when you repeat those, you're speaking it into your life. Why is it that it is called in occult English? Why is it that it is called spelling, right? You're spelling things into your life. You're spelling either your misery or you're spelling well-being. That choice is completely up to you. Why do they want everyone to learn English? Well, because the unconscious mind does not make any distinction in between the words you use. That's why, one extra reason why I tell you, don't get too attached to your meaning. It is irrelevant, right? When you say morning, right, good morning, well, it sounds the same as mourning when you go and cry at a funeral for someone who has departed, right? You live in a world of sickness, decay, pain, suffering, and abandonment. When you say mourning to someone else, what do you think your subconscious, who is or which is so attuned to pain, suffering, and such, what do you think you're spelling into your life when you're telling someone good morning, right? Do you spell more grievance into your life? Or do you spell some nice ideas? It is up to you to say. Does Christianity tell you that there are two Jesuses though? Well, obviously that's going to piss Muslims and Christians though, but occultism functions in different ways. It doesn't care what religion you have. Occultism is all about manipulating energy. And you can use it for good things, yes, but you can also use it for bad things. And since people don't know what the occult is, easily you can simply say that, well, Jesus didn't revive people, they just brought them out of, let's say, clinical death, or they may have brought them out of a coma and it was misinterpreted by the illiterate people in there. But let's say that to a certain extent, or even entirely, this is true, right? God did not revive anyone, they just pulled them out of a coma. But let's think a bit about that. Isn't that still a godly thing? See, if you ever had someone who is suddenly in a coma, isn't that a horrible thing, right? Especially if someone precious, your spouse, your child, you just stay there hopelessly at your home or at the hospital, and they're just there, right? They're not dead. Science tells you clearly, the machines tell you clearly, no, they're not dead, but they're not moving. You can poke at them, you can beat them, nothing, right? It's like there's nobody home. And then you have someone like Jesus, and there were other people as well in the world with such powers. They simply snapped them back into their body. Isn't this, if you ask me, isn't this somewhat of a godly thing, right? Even if you bring someone out of a coma suddenly, it's like, whoa, wait a minute, that is not something anyone can do, right? So while it is very easy to simply contradict everything and regard everything as a lie, well, the big question is, hasn't this sick society regarded everything as a lie, right? But nowadays, you're prancing about with your lies. The biggest question is, and this is one of the downfalls of many of the religions, unfortunately, is prayer actually going to help you? From an occult way, understanding things is like this. Even from a scientific perspective, something which is much less vibrational will not be going downwards, right? Something which is very vibrant, something which is very violent, will always tend to go less and less, right? If you look at radiation, what does radiation do? Well, I call radiation the first form of life. It is the most voracious form of existence, right? Because it is very vibrant, very violent. What does radiation do? Well, radiation lacks electrons, so it steals electrons from the nearby matter because it seeks to balance itself out, right? Similarly, you'll see demons and entities going towards the light because they are drawn by something which is higher. Something which is higher, well, if it is drawn by something which is lower, well, probably there's something problematic with it, right? You see a lot of empathic people, they still need some stability in their life, and they still need to fully understand and comprehend their emotions and their functions. That's why they still go back to narcissistic relationships, right? But once they realize their full potential, will you see them ever going back to narcissistic people or abusive people? You'll never see that, right? Do you go to Jesus because he is vibrationally lower to you? Or does Jesus come to you because you're vibrationally lower to them? You're going to Jesus only because they are higher vibrational. Life functions like that. If something is better, life will automatically move towards that. If you only sit still for some time, most likely the confusion and the madness in your mind will make you unstable, and like you definitely want to do something, but well, honestly, you will always want to tend towards something which is much better. Now, this whole sick society made it feel that the only better thing for you is to suffer, right? And they also made this fear of death, the worst thing ever. See, this is another reversal of truth, because death, in a way, is a gift. Not in the sense that someone has to kill you like the Hebrew religion says. The only godly thing that you can do to anyone else other than you is to kill them. Not that. But think about one thing. Why do you think the old, the gurus, the people who have transcended life and death, partially or entirely, why do you think they chose to transcend life at very young ages? right? 33 years, 30 years, probably 40 at most, because they had a respect towards life. They didn't want to grow old and feeble. They wanted this physical body to be left at a stage of life when it is still vibrant, right? Nowadays, in this narcissistic society, narcissism is all about attachment, extreme attachment to everything. You're attached to this life, you're a perfection, you're calling yourself perfection because, well, you're a perfectionist. Abandonment issues. As I said, people have abandonment issues, they will definitely become perfectionists, right? And it's how the unconscious functions. It's not me prophesizing things, these have been going on around for thousands of years. So the very simple point is, if we look even closer, prayer. See, who are you actually praying to? Religion and, well, especially occultism, won't tell you that there are two Jesuses. There's the Jesus Christ, the Savior or the Prophet, depending on which religion you refer to. And then there's also Jesus Emmanuel, a fallen angel, as of what I heard from a single source, but I wouldn't believe it otherwise, because when is it, again, the last time you heard the truth from this sick society? A fallen angel, obviously a demon in a way. What is a demon? Well, a demon is definitely a kind of energy that is not suiting to your life, right? So when you're praying to things, will divinity come to you? Well, the twisted version of these religions made it so that you're convinced that the angels and God will descend to you. No, they will not descend to you. No being that is superior to you in vibration can come to you, because their vibration will be so much more powerful, they will simply shatter you. That is why when people who are truly spiritual, when they start taking you, embarking you on the path of spirituality, they always have to take you slow, right? No guru will come into your life and say, let me enlighten you, because once they unleash certain karmic locks that are within you, they were made by nature so that you don't get hurt. A lot of people want to dive, for example, into their previous lifetimes. Why do you think those are locked from you? Because most people, especially miserable people, they can't handle this whole freaking life. So do you think they can handle the pains and struggles of previous lifetimes? When you experience those things, you're going to experience those the same exact way that you have experienced those in that specific life at that specific moment. It's not that you're going to watch a movie with actors that they're going to portray how you were in your previous lifetime. No, you're going to unlock the exact emotional feels and the such. You can't handle this life. Suddenly you find out that you have been betrayed and butchered brutally in a previous lifetime. You're going to experience that with the extreme anguish that you have gone back then, right? I'm not sure if you can handle that pain, because it's going to hurt you the same exact way or even more than it was then. Can you handle that? I don't think you can. So stop believing in things that are beyond you. Try to grasp a better understanding of life and then dive into those. Now, yet again, when you pray to things, a lot of people simply pray in a brain-dead way, because, as I said, a big problem of people has always been this expectation that God will save them, God will do things for them, because they can't understand the fact that the world has been done, now divinity is resting, they won't move any finger to change you or whatever else. This whole universe was blessed with something that not even creation itself has. You have discernment. How does creation not have it? Because discernment belongs to this physical body. Once you leave this physical body, let's say you're at your funeral. When you leave this physical body, the first second you have left this physical body, you may perceive the energies of everyone staying and mourning and the such. But you instantly forget who they were, what they were for you. There's no longer your mother, your father, or whatever. There's just indistinguishable energy. Imagine that creation in such a state gave you a power beyond itself, right? Now, it doesn't mean that you are superior to creation. Don't take my words out of context. But you have a potential that creation gave to you in order to manifest it, right? Why do you think many religions say from untruth into truth, right? from unconsciousness into consciousness into unconsciousness yet again. They're not telling you that you're going to be enlightened and then you're going to become ignorant again. They're telling you that you start as an ignorant. Once you become enlightened, you realize through multiple layers of enlightenment, yes, you will come to realize the layers of life. And then you will know what creation truly is. And then you will want to transcend all these pains of the minds, of emotions, abandonment, and the such. Right? You have reached the awareness, the consciousness, and then you're going to move back into the unconscious, which means you're going to transcend all these and become one with creation. Because creation has made a way through this universe in which it can attain a higher level of existence. Once you fully realize yourself, you will feel that there is no more need to experience anything else into this world, because it is the utmost that can be experienced in this world. It is what life seeks in this world. But if it becomes poisoned too much by meaning, well, that's all part of the challenges of this world. Creation definitely didn't make this universe for it to experience and be all just an easy game. This whole life, is a game on the utmost extreme level, because everyone who became enlightened, they didn't just come into this world and became enlightened, right? Gautama the Buddha and Jesus Christ and the such, right? They had previous lifetimes, right? Christianity will tell you that, hey, Jesus was born only once. How do you know Jesus was born only once, right? Maybe they had previous lifetimes as well. If God themselves, right, incarnated themselves into Jesus as the Son, right? God themselves incarnate into the flesh and bone. They came into this world once. How can you be sure they didn't do it before also, right? They're telling you that this is the whole history that we have. But there are sources that say that we humans have been close to extinction 5 times before. But the question is, how long ago were those other 5 times, right? They're telling you that the Egyptians are primitives, right? Were primitives back in those times. But the question is, how could they have built those pyramids if they were those primitive? When you look at some of their stone plates, well, let's say you will see goddess Isis sitting, but with her wings spread, right? Which shows that she was sitting, but at the same time flying. Where will you see an entity with wings that they're spread and fly, but they're sitting, right? In Christianity, when you see the angels, they don't sit, right? When they fly, they don't sit, right? So maybe everything that you have taught could be a lie, right? Now you have all sorts of people telling you that everything in this whole life is a simulation. Well, I'm telling you one thing, the only simulation that there is the pain in your mind, because you're imagining a lot of things. Obviously there are people hurting you and such, but the hurt happens in a certain moment, and then you're propagating that moment yet again and again. Another meaning of this idea of the whole world is a simulation. Well, seems like a simulation because you're not suffering enough, right? If someone punches you in the face, I assure you that the pain you're feeling in that specific moment is definitely not a simulation, right? If you believe life is a simulation, well, simply pluck your nose and your mouth and don't breathe for a certain time, right? Don't breathe for some moments, and try to edge yourself a bit. I'm not telling anyone to do, to go too far. Just do it a bit, and you will see your whole body will say, fuck you, I want to breathe, I want to live, right? Don't tell me that that thing is a simulation. Don't tell me your impulses. The impulses of the physical body are just a simulation, right? Boil some water and put your hand into it, right? I assure you the instinct to pull your hand out is definitely not a simulation, right? Now, when you pray to things, the point of prayer is that prayer should be more or less a meditation through which you silence the madness in your mind. You silence and distance yourself from the silence in your mind, right? When you do that, you become somewhat calmer. You tend to become calmer, you become more and more similar to creation, right? Because creation is calmness. And when you think about it, Everything in nature looks pristine. Everything in nature is pure. Yes, animals can be brutal because they need to hunt, they need to eat. But you look at them, there is so much pristineness within them. How they live their life, how much grace it is even in those simple animals, right? And we humans are so much more complex, we have so much more potential, but that all comes to a price, right? One reason why we all suffer, well, people simply don't bother reading the instructions manuals. So when you start praying, well, when you pray, the problem is when you pray, you don't know whom you pray towards. You say you pray towards gods, but gods and creations of religion that you have them nowadays, no longer the pure religions that once were. You have them tell you less, right? Be less. So you're praying towards something which is much weaker. We live in a sick society of narcissists. Narcissists are all about, obsessing about attention. Why do you think death is the worst thing in this sick society? Because to a narcissist, death is the greatest punishment. To a narcissist, death is their greatest fear because they call themselves the ultimate perfection. And death is that ugly thing that comes and steals all that perfection from them, right? They'll call it the great injustice. And that's why they all bitch, whine, and complain about this world, that it is so unjust, right? They have struggled so much to create this perfection of theirs. But funnily speaking, death will come and take it away. So that's why they had to portray you, that death is the most horrible thing. Death in a way is a gift, because why live for dozens of years, end up in enfeebled states where your body suffers, right? When your body starts suffering, all the miserable people in your life will try to tie you to machines and keep torturing you, right? They're telling you that keeping people alive in hospitals for several more months, it is humane. When is it the last time you heard the truth in this sick society? Haven't they reversed the truth, right? Keeping someone tied to the machines and not allowing them to die a graceful death. Well, isn't that torturous enough, right? They're not pulling needles or doing cuts into your body or the such. But when life wants to leave, it will leave. It doesn't matter whether you live in an elemental body, in a cybernetic body, or in flesh and blood. When life wants to leave, it will leave. If you force it not to leave, it's gonna be way more miserable both for you and for that person as well, right? The old teachings told you, when your enemy is dying, even if they are your enemy, right, stay by them and try to make their death a bit more pleasant, because hopefully through this their next life will be more pleasant. You make their death even worse than their life was, their next life will also be worse, but it will also be affecting you as well. But these teachings, where are they? Where are these teachings of superior aspects? Well, kind of no one wants to care much about those, because it's all about you being primitive and you thinking that everything around you is the only thing that can be. That's how narcissists function, right? Everything around them is just a tool. So hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness, and don't forget, prayer is about raising your vibration, not just beseeching entities to change your life. You have to do that. Your life, your happiness is your own doing, right? Your pain is your own doing as well. Change your environment if you are in pain. Don't simply embrace that which happens to you, because if something happens to you and you don't feel good about it, how about you do some changes? Prayer is about not only invoking greater beings, but trying to take their example and be more like them. Everyone is talking to me and speaking to me that Jesus is loving. Well, why would I care about Jesus being loving? Why not you, right? Do you see any Jesus around? They have transcended their physical body, right? Their physical life is over. Now they are part of creation. They came back into creation. They are now one and the same with the love of creation, right? The power of creation. How about you follow their example? And I'm not saying that you should necessarily die like Jesus did, right? But how about you become more of that which you speak about? You keep telling me that God is love. You keep telling me that Jesus is love. Well, how about you take that example? Because I've kind of never seen someone who would tell me about Jesus and God and they would not be miserable at all. Many of the people are more miserable than me. when they tell me about Jesus. The only reason why they speak to me about Jesus being good is because they still expect the same lie that Jesus will change their life and will cure them of their misery. I'm telling you one thing. I've been raised in a narcissistic environment. I've been overly judged, accused of everything. I've lived separated from my emotions. I've gone through hell and back. Obviously, I'm not the only individual in this world, but ultimately, my experiences will always be more important than other people's experiences because that is part of our background. I haven't lived other people's life, nor have they lived my life. But at least I transcended each situation, because when something happens to you, you can either become hurt or you can become wiser. One day I decided to simply share some of the things I have learned, and why not? Here I am doing this. I'm not a prophet. I'm not anyone who imposes you that my way is the best way. I'm not that kind of person. I'm just giving you different possibilities, different ideas. Whether you make use of those, it's okay to me. Whether you don't, it's okay to me. I'm not gonna cry if you swear at me, if you say that my wisdom is nonsense or whatever, right? I just want people to understand that. I'm not here for your attention. I've been attention deprived my whole life. Believe me, I can well do without attention, okay? When I was 10 years younger, my grandmother would, turn her back on me and play this stupid game that, if she's pissed, she's no longer giving me attention because she loved the idea of people pleading for her attention. One day I woke up and I realized that that was actually my greatest gift. There was one moment when my grandmother, whom I lived with, wouldn't speak to me for 2 whole days because, well, she got pissed with me again. But she also had dementia, unfortunately. In the last 2 years of her life, she was very painful to me. There were very many things that happened, especially towards the last few months before she passed away. And, well, the point is I went through hell and back. Even my mother was, feeling awkward about, because she lived with my grandmother's sister, who was similar in a way, similarly narcissistic and controlling, but she was way easier to deal with. My grandmother was way worse in a way, from different ideas, but I learned how narcissism functions, how pains function, and I still managed to be loving and such. People who tell me that, I have everything settled in my life. Well, I dare them to look in my eyes, especially if we meet one-on-one. And probably a very few people manage to realize the deep pains that there have been within me. But with great pains also come great lessons. And here I am trying to share some of them. You can misinterpret those or pull my words out of context. You're not going to achieve anything. You're just playing with meaning. I only make use of meaning to portray something different to people. Whether they make use of it, well, it is up to them. Their happiness is an inside job. I don't own anyone, nobody owns me, and I don't owe anyone anything, nor does anyone owe me anything. If you don't like me, I'm not gonna cry. I've been an attention star my whole existence. So believe me, I can well live without other people around me. I live in one of the most depopulated towns in my home country. And believe me, when you walk outside and there's barely any people around, what difference does it make to ignorance? Because they just rush to reach nowhere. To me, it is so much more pristine, so much calm, when I am here in nature. Maybe there's not much of a good connection to the internet, but you can find other connections here in nature. Now I gotta wrap this video up, and well, it's been more than an hour since I've been around here. This being said, hopefully this video raised some awareness. You are appreciated, take care, and remember, life in a way is like a video game. Don't let the game play you instead, because you live in a physical body, you have to attend to its rules. You will be affected by compulsions and such, and all of these are called bad for a reason, right? Narcissists want your attention. When you're focusing on compulsions or something's on your mind, you're not going to give them their attention. Don't forget, narcissists broke this whole world. Even religions stink of narcissism, right? They're pure teachings. Who cares about those? People are telling you about all sorts of things from religions or any other teachings, right? Not all teachings are religious by nature, but there always seems to be some agenda behind those. So this being said, you know, when a sick society tells you that you have to be good to others, well, even the pandemic told you that you have to be good to others, right? But the whole purpose was not you being good to others. It was all about being you complacent, right? You being complacent and playing the same role as a puppy, right? That they have, the miserable people of kindergartens teach you, right? The same old game of Simon says do this, Simon says do that. It's been going on for thousands of years. When so much karma becomes, the norm, well, it is going to be hard to break out from it. That's why the simple-minded people will simply brainlessly follow it. They've been doing it for countless lifetimes before. It is easy for them to simply slip into it and do the same thing again and again, because by now it is already their comfort zone. Occultism knows that. That's why misery is so powerful. That's why misery it is well, basically misery is the only enemy in this video game of life, right? Just to cuddle the egos of people who think this whole game is a simulation, this whole life would be a simulation. When creation made all of these possible so that it can reach a higher level of fulfillment through this universe, through becoming enlightened in this particular universe. You don't know how many other universes there are though. But the question is, in this particular universe, life can become enlightened and reach its full potential. Obviously, when creation, something beyond your comprehension, beyond this whole universe as well, when creation did all this complexity, well, the very simple point is, you gotta expect the utmost, right? You gotta expect the most extreme possible. So this being said, you are appreciated, take care, enjoy life. This being said, Ferenc Jan Bor.